Bioluminescence by Ben Solomon. Phase 6. What do you know about the world? History. Bio-wonder. After the inward work of identity, value, belief, and authorship, the philosophy must widen. A person cannot remain healthy by studying only the private self. At some point, the mind must look outward and ask what kind of world it has entered. What histories produce the present? What civilizations, rituals, empires, migrations, collapses, technologies, and visions shape the reality now taken for granted? What remains visible, and what has been buried? Phase 6 begins with these questions because no inner light stays mature if it becomes narcissistic. Consciousness must eventually move beyond self-obsession into wonder, inquiry, and historical depth. Wonder is the right word here because it carries a double meaning. Wonder is awe, astonishment, the feeling that reality exceeds ordinary explanation. But wonder is also questioning. To wonder about something is to inquire into it, to refuse lazy familiarity, to stand before it with disciplined curiosity. This double meaning is essential. Without awe, knowledge becomes dry and domineering. Without inquiry, awe becomes vague sentiment. Bio-wonder unites both. It asks the human being to encounter the world as something worthy of reverence and worthy of rigorous study. Most people inherit a shallow relation to history. They are given dates, patriotic narratives, simplified heroes, and moral slogans. History becomes either a list of facts or a weapon of identity. In both cases, it loses its power. Real history is not dead information. It is the living memory of how human beings have repeatedly organized power, beauty, violence, belief, labor, myth, architecture, conquest, survival, and meaning. It shows what civilizations valued enough to build, what they feared enough to suppress, and what they left behind, whether intentionally or by accident. A philosophy without historical depth becomes easy prey for presentism. The illusion that the current moment is all that matters or all that has ever been. A logical perspective of history looks for causation, sequence, evidence, material conditions, and institutional structures. It asks what happened, when, where, why, and through what forces. It studies economics, war, agriculture, religion, technology, governance, and migration. It sees that outcomes are shaped not only by individual genius, but by systems, geography, and collective behavior. This perspective protects against fantasy. It prevents the mind from reducing the world to symbolism alone. It insists that facts matter, that chronology matters, that archives matter, and that people lived and died under conditions that can and should be studied carefully. At its best, this historical discipline protects the seeker from romantic laziness. Many people love the mood of the ancient world without studying the actual labor, conflict, disease, hierarchy, adaptation, and technical intelligence that made ancient life possible. Others speak about ancestors abstractly without learning the conditions through which those ancestors survived. Logic asks for evidence and proportion. It reminds us that reverence becomes stronger, not weaker, when it can withstand close examination. To know the world honestly is to know that beauty and brutality often share the same historical soil. A disciplined study of history also teaches the limits of innocence. Every civilization has generated light and shadow. Every people have built, preserved, betrayed, resisted, worshipped, and revised. This does not flatten moral distinctions. Rather, it matures them. It forces the seeker to move beyond simplistic stories in which one culture contains only wisdom and another, only violence. Real history is denser than slogans. It requires the humility to let complexity remain complex while still drawing moral lessons from what has been done. A chaotic perspective of history asks different but equally important questions. It looks at unpredictability, contingency, collapse, symbolic eruption, hidden motive, and the irrational energies that move human groups. It sees that history is not only planned. Sometimes empires fall through overconfidence, accident, plague, internal rot, or a failure to read the spirit of an age. Sometimes a single invention changes consciousness beyond what any ruler intended. Sometimes oral traditions preserve truths that official records erase. Sometimes the hidden message is more important than the official declaration. A chaotic view of history resists the false comfort of total explanation. It reminds us that the world is shaped not only by logic, but by passions, myths, omens, fears, visions, and unintended consequences. To hold both perspectives at once is part of wisdom. The world is neither pure system nor pure accident. It is a field in which structure and disruption continually interact. History is therefore one of the best teachers of humility. It reveals how often human beings mistake temporary order for eternal reality. Kingdoms rise and fall. Technologies transform the imaginable. Sacred centers are abandoned. Languages migrate. New gods enter old lands. Ideas once unthinkable become common, and certainties once unshakable become ruins. The student of history learns that permanence is rare and that every age believes itself more final than it is. This humility should not produce despair, it should deepen attention. To know the world historically is to become harder to deceive. It is to notice patterns in propaganda, cycles in power, repetitions in empire, and the recurring use of myth by those who govern. It is to see that every generation inherits both treasure and distortion. Biowonder teaches that knowledge of the world is not only accumulation of facts, but training in perception. The person who studies history carefully begins to see the present more clearly because he recognizes what kind of forces are moving again under new names. The 7 wonders of the ancient world offer a perfect symbolic entry into this phase because they reveal what civilizations considered astonishing enough to memorialize. The Great Pyramid of Giza, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, the statue of Zeus, the Temple of Artemis, the Mausoleum at Halicarnassus, the Colossus of Rhodes, and the Lighthouse of Alexandria were not simply tourist attractions in ancient imagination. They were statements about scale, devotion, technical power, cosmic order, kingship, beauty, and the desire to leave a mark against time. Even in ruin, they continue to ask a profound question. What does a civilization choose to make monumental? To contemplate these wonders properly is to notice that monuments are arguments in stone, bronze, and labor. They say, without words, this is what we believed worth organizing our bodies around. A pyramid does not rise only from engineering. It rises from cosmology, authority, economy, ritual, and collective will. A temple declares not merely wealth, but orientation. A lighthouse declares responsibility to navigation, trade, and survival. The wonder, therefore, is not just the object, but the human field that made the object possible. What people can build reveals what they are willing to imagine together. The same question should be turned toward the present. What are the wonders of this age? Skyscrapers, data networks, satellites, cinematic universes, digital archives, mass transportation systems, Biomedical laboratories, surveillance infrastructures, stadiums, luxury enclaves, and online platforms all reveal what modern civilization has chosen to make monumental. Some are sublime, some are terrifying, many are both. Biowonder asks the seeker to read the present with the same seriousness used to read the ancient world. What does contemporary monumentality say about what the age worships? A similar question can be asked of natural wonders. Mountains, cataracts, deserts, reefs, canyons, forests, and celestial events have always taught human beings that they are not the sole measure of reality. Natural wonder humbles and enlarges at once. It reminds the observer that intelligence did not begin with human design. The world itself precedes human architecture and frequently surpasses it. A philosophy that forgets this becomes anthropocentric and spiritually cramped. To stand before a desert, storm, ocean trench, eclipse, or ancient tree is to feel the scale of existence beyond personal drama. Wonder also lives in human traditions that do not always appear on official lists. Martial arts, sacred dances, oral epics, coded songs, diaspora religions, call and response forms, and community rituals can be wonders too. A capoeira circle is a wonder of memory carried through movement. Calenda is a wonder of embodied survival and rhythm. Lam is a wonder of physical culture, ancestral force, and public ritual. These living forms reveal that history is not only stored in monuments of stone, it is also stored in bodies, music, gesture, costume, proverb, and transmitted skill. The world leaves hidden messages in practices as much as in buildings. This matters because official history often privileges what empires built while ignoring what communities preserved under pressure. The student of bio-wonder must therefore ask, whose memory became official and whose memory survived unofficially? What was written and what was sung? What was carved into walls and what was encoded into ritual? What was displayed publicly and what had to be hidden in order to survive? These questions deepen historical inquiry beyond classroom simplification. They train the mind to look for continuity beneath erasure. Many figures in history left messages deeper than their public reputation suggests. Some did so through architecture, some through mythic story, some through aphorism, mathematics, cosmology, ritual forms, or hidden symbolism. Whether one studies Egyptian temple orientation, Pythagorean number philosophy, West African cosmograms, Sufi poetry, indigenous star knowledge, or the coded spiritual language of oppressed communities, a pattern appears. Human beings have always attempted to smuggle wisdom across time. Sometimes the message is plain. Sometimes it survives only for those willing to learn how to read it. Thank you for spending time inside Bioluminescence. This glimpse is only the beginning, an excerpt from a larger vision taking shape in the mind and heart of Ben Solomon. Stay with us. There is much more to come.